Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman. I'm from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks, and I represent much of the San Fernando Valley. It's a pleasure to be with you here today to join the Taiwanese American community and supporters of the Taiwanese American Conference West Coast. I especially want to thank Ken Wu, chairperson of the Taiwanese American Conference West Coast, who extended the invitation to me in February while we were both attending the Taiwanese American Chamber of Commerce event. And I want to thank Ms. Sharon Wang, who serves as the executive Los Angeles team lead of the Taiwanese American Conference West Coast, as well as president of the North American Taiwanese Women's Association Southern California chapter. Ken and Sharon have provided the leadership which has brought the Taiwanese Americans and supporters of Taiwan from as far away as Oregon and Washington here to Southern California, and they deserve our collective thank you. I want to acknowledge that a couple of my congressional colleagues have sent representatives here today. I know there's a representative from the office of Judy Chu and Congresswoman Michelle Steele. On a daily basis, you should be proud, as I am, that the California delegation works collaboratively and in a bipartisan manner to assure that your voice is heard in Washington, D.C. In fact, you might remember that my good friend Steve Chabot and I authored or co-sponsored an awful lot of legislation over the years, which were referred to as the Sherman-Chabot or the Chabot-Sherman bills. With the confluence of events in Washington this week and with the visit of the heads of so many NATO organizations, I unfortunately need to be in Washington and cannot be with you in person. Thankfully, we are able to have the ability to visit by video. You should know that in the audience today is my senior advisor, John Alford, from our Los Angeles office, our Sherman Oaks office. See John if you have any issues involving federal agencies such as visas or immigration or passports. John works hard and gets the job done. Please give John your card or your email address if you want me to keep you informed of the issues that I'm going to be discussing here today. As you are probably well aware, this year marks the 45th anniversary of the Taiwan Relations Act. That act, signed into law February 1, 1979, intends to maintain peace, security, and stability in the Western Pacific. This act, of course, created to allow the United States to have diplomatic relations with the People's Republic, but at the same time, the U.S. Agreed to a relationship with Taiwan. It is a relationship where we've withdrawn much of the military personnel that we had there in 1979, but it continues to provide a legal basis for relations working closely through the office of called the Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office in Taekro. It should be an ambassadorship. We'll get there. The act also promotes the foreign policy of the United States by authorizing the continuation of commercial, cultural, and other relations between the people of the United States and the people of Taiwan. I believe it also authorizes direct commercial military sales to Taiwan. As an outgrowth of this act, the United States government has followed what we call a one China policy, though there is strategic ambiguity in the act by not specifying whether the United States would use military force in the event of an attack on Taiwan. Permit me to remind you that since 2021, President Biden has said again and again that the United States would in fact militarily defend Taiwan. This is a vital showing to President Xi that he should not even think of invading or blockading Taiwan. For over 27 years, I've served on the Foreign Affairs Committee of the United States House of Representatives, including as chair of its Asia Subcommittee. And I have, for nearly 28 years, been a member of the Taiwan Congressional Caucus, which now has 229 members. We've built it to the point where it has a majority of the members of the House serving in that caucus. In that time, I followed Taiwan's evolution into a truly vibrant democracy. And in that time, I've authored or co-authored 50 pieces of legislation in support of Taiwan, including the Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act, the Taiwan Diplomatic Review Act, the Taiwan Travel Act, which has elevated, or which is designed to elevate, the diplomatic exchange between the United States and Taiwan. I first visited Taiwan back in 2014, where I met President President Tsai, and who at that time was not yet president of Taiwan, and of course she is now a former president of Taiwan. I had a chance to meet with her again many times, including in April of 2023, and I look forward to many high-level visits between Taiwanese officials and American officials, particularly including President William Lai as the third incumbent vice president to succeed to the presidency, and first assume that office but he's the first to assume that office through election rather than immediate succession. His election underscores the vibrant democracy that Taiwan has become. I applaud the people of Taiwan for upholding democratic ideals, with this being Taiwan's 8th consecutive democratic presidential election. We should also condemn Beijing's attempt to influence and interfere elections through disinformation, or even worse, through military pressure. I understand that earlier, when President Lai served as mayor of Tainan, he argued that it was possible to love Taiwan while also having an affinity for China. He has since taken note of his position that there is no need to declare independence because Taiwan is already sovereign. It is a sovereign country called the Republic of China. While that may very well be true, you don't need to remind you that China may have other ideas which might not be consistent with the sovereignty and the self-determination of the Taiwanese people. In May, we saw Taiwan's bid to attend the World Health Organization Annual Assembly rejected after a campaign of diplomatic pressure from China to isolate Taiwan, arguing that it was a mere province. When we recently experienced the horrors of COVID-19, we were reminded that pandemics do not discriminate as they spread across the globe. However, even in this diplomatic isolation imposed by China from the WHO, Taiwan learned lessons from previous outbreaks, responded quickly, and helped the world by providing both an example and protective gear. What resulted was an effort to that was a minimum impact on Taiwan compared to so many other countries. The international community, through the WHO, could have benefited from Taiwan's example. If there is another outbreak of an infectious disease, it would be good common sense to have everyone at the WHO Annual Assembly include Taiwan so that it would show its effective practices of pandemic response. Likewise, Taiwan has been excluded as a member of Interpol, the international criminal policing organization. It cannot access or contribute to Interpol's 19 criminal intelligence databases, nor can it access or assist with Interpol systems for requesting international cooperation. As a result, the ability of Interpol to combat transnational organized crime is hampered because Beijing is acting to exclude Taiwan. Excluding Taiwan from WHO and Interpol simply helps pathogens and criminals. We ought to be including Taiwan in these critical organizations. Taiwan relies on its diplomatic partners to advocate for it at the United Nations and in other international fora. from which unfortunately it is excluded. Taiwan's diplomatic partners also provide opportunities for Taiwan's leaders to make official trips abroad and transit visits through the United States on the outbound and inbound legs of those international visits. Although the United States government does not recognize Taiwan diplomatically, it seeks to dissuade other countries from breaking diplomatic relations with Taiwan. Just today, the Associated Press reported that the Taiwan Coast Guard has indicated that it had to fend off an attempted incursion from 4 Chinese ships. This report happens to be the 31st reported incursion just this year. Such reporting of similar incidences are alarming, whether they involve the Philippines, Australia, Japan, Vietnam, or Malaysia. Perhaps there's an opportunity for these countries to build a coalition opposing aggressive Chinese naval action. It is clear that China's coercive policies threaten the security and stability of the Pacific region. Support for Taiwan is more critical now than ever. From the Chinese Navy using its active sonar to injure 2 Australian Royal Navy divers when they were in international waters off Japan, to deploying spy balloons which crossed the entire length of the United States, to clashing with Indian forces on the line of actual control, resulting in the death of 20 Indian soldiers, to, as you all know, President Xi announcing that the Chinese military should be ready to invade Taiwan by 2027. These are all deeply concerning aggressive actions from China, and ones that America should not take lightly. And they are trends that I certainly don't take lightly. That's why I support Taiwan, and I believe that our support for Taiwan is more critical than ever. The United States needs to stand unequivocally with Taiwan, not just in rhetoric, but also making sure that we do everything we can to work with Taiwan economically, diplomatically, and very importantly, militarily. That's why I was a vocal advocate of passing the National Security Supplemental Appropriations Bill, which provides $8 billion in critical military aid for Taiwan. I advocated this for months. The Republicans in Congress delayed it. Finally, we were able to pass it in April. That's why I also support the United States exploring other avenues to make sure Taiwan receives the military support and equipment that it needs. In February, the House Foreign Affairs Committee held a hearing on the Australia, United Kingdom, U.S. Working Group. And this was designed to facilitate Australia acquiring nuclear-powered attack submarines as part of the efforts by allies to push back against China's growing aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. This January, Taiwan's chief representative in Australia, Douglas Su, stated that Taiwan is open to deeper cooperation with the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia through our existing framework. This would address key issues for Taiwan, such as cyber capacities and information sharing. So I made sure to secure a commitment from the Undersecretary for Arms Control and International Security, Bonnie Jenkins, to review Representative Xu's proposal that Taiwan join that initiative. Taiwan and the United States have a robust trade and investment relationship. Trade is over a total of $100 billion a year, making Taiwan one of the top 10 United States trading partners. We also have substantial investments in each other's economy, with over $30 billion of U.S. foreign direct investment in Taiwan and $14 billion of Taiwanese foreign direct investment in the United States. We celebrate the new investment of Taiwan in the western United States with some $40 billion from the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. This past Sunday, the state of Texas became the 23rd state to open an office, along with California, in Taipei. Texas did so in large part because of the decision made by made by a Taiwan-based semiconductor silicon wafer company to build a state-of-the-art silicon wafer factory in an interestingly named city, Sherman, Texas. In doing so, the supply chain issues that the U.S. faces will be reduced, and we will have more self-reliance in the areas of silicon wafers. While I wish California had been selected, this scenario is indicative of the collaborative relationship between Taiwan and the United States. Furthermore, Congress recently addressed the issue of double taxation. The Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act of 2024 authorizes a negotiated solution to eliminate the double taxation that currently exists on cross-border investments between the United States and Taiwan. The passage of this legislation will increase direct foreign investment between both countries and reduces the dependence on the People's Republic of China for critical technologies and resources. But I must mention an inconvenient truth. Taiwan is one of the few allies of the United States that faces a realistic possibility of invasion or blockade. That the goal should be not to defeat an invasion, but to deter an invasion by demonstrating to Beijing that the cost of invading or blockading Taiwan would be way too high. While America's military response may be strategically ambiguous, we should clarify that our economic response would be immediate. That's why I have been working with some of my colleagues to enact a legislation specifying that if Taiwan is invaded or blockaded, then without further action, without presidential waiver, without any delay, we would end most favored nation status for China, and we need to lock that into statute so that Beijing can read the statute and know what's happening. The world is closely watching the unfolding of Putin's second illegal war on Ukraine. Its effects are not lost in Beijing. As the close relationship between Putin and Xi has been growing, these two individuals must and should pay attention to the fact that the Biden administration and the United States Congress is providing enormous aid to Ukraine. And if Ukraine prevails, both China and Russia will take note of that result, and China will be reluctant to invade Taiwan or engage in other adventures. However, as the saying goes, hope is not a strategy. Meanwhile, the U.S. Defense Department has developed a national defense industrial strategy, which should help address delays in arms shipments to Taiwan. More work is needed here to flesh out this strategy and to build a stockpile and to reduce any gaps in shipments of any weapons that Taiwan may need. The United States needs to provide Taiwan with the defensive weapons it needs because, as we have seen in Eastern Europe, when a smaller country is invaded by a larger country, it doesn't always work out well for the large country. And American weapons are a critical part of that. Fortunately, Taiwan has taken steps like developing a strategy called the Overall Defense Concept to deal with the potential Chinese invasion. Taiwan has extended compulsory military service from 4 months to 1 year, which will increase the island's defense capacities. Taiwan is also focused on a high-quality platform, several platforms in fact, and long-term investment in the indigenous diesel submarine program. In doing so, Taiwan is demonstrating its seriousness and its worthiness as a U.S. defense ally. And finally, I would urge Taiwan to do whatever it can to prepare for its own defense, whether that be through additional expenditure of funds, additional military training, and none of us would ever want to see a need for this training to actually be put to use. The best way to prevent war is to be ready for it. So let us reaffirm our unwavering commitment to supporting Taiwan's prosperity, its military capacity, its democracy, and its freedom. Thank you. I'm Congressman Brad Sherman.